All right, we've got some breaking news now. A major court ruling in British Columbia just in about the use of medical marijuana. The court has ruled that users can keep growing their own pot. Lawyers in BC had been seeking an exemption to Health Canada's new laws for medical marijuana. They were due to come into force April the 1st. The lawyers got what they wanted. CTV's Melanie Nagy joins us now from Vancouver. Melanie, I know this is a lengthy document. Talk to us a little bit, though, about what you're seeing here.
Yeah, so I've got the document right here. It's a 40-page decision. Chunk of it goes over a lot of the legal arguments that were presented in court on Tuesday. But here I've got the judge's order, and just, you know, it's really literally hot off the presses. So let me just tell you that the judges found that those people who are authorized for possession, they are exempt from the changes. The new rules. Health Canada is going to change the rules as of April 1st. So those patients who can possess their medical marijuana, they are exempt, as well as they are talking about the designated production licenses and as well as patient production. So those people who have had a license where they're designated to grow for others, they are exempt at this time. And these are the people that were involved in this injunction. So there's going to be a lot of dissecting that needs to go through this document and what it means. And keep in mind that this is a temporary injunction on a lot of the constitutional issues and challenges around the new rules. Patients, they didn't want these new rules. They don't want these new rules. They say it's going to drive the price of their medical marijuana up. They also say that it's going to limit their access. They won't be able to get the strains that they need. They also, as well, those designated growers said that they have invested in this type of production for years now, and there will be a financial loss for them. So we had an Abbotsford lawyer, a constitutional lawyer, took the case to court, asked for this temporary exemption. That is what the judge has ruled on today. It's a limited exemption to the rules. But the big picture here is further down the road, because it sounds like that this issue is going to go to trial. I was in court on Tuesday, and the judge did recommend that this issue, which is a constitutional challenge of the new medical marijuana rules, he encouraged both sides to set a trial date, and they were already talking to that being for later this year. So I've got to tell you, my Twitter feed has exploded. This is a topic that people are watching, but right now the patients, the designated growers that were involved in this particular court case, there are other ones as well that were waiting to see what this decision was. The people involved in this one have been granted a temporary injunction to the new rules, which will take place on April 1st.
Melanie Nagy with this breaking news, this medical marijuana decision in BC. Thanks for this, Melanie.
A blow today to Health Canada's attempt to overhaul the medical marijuana system. A Vancouver judge has ruled patients who grow their own pot will be allowed to keep doing so, despite new regulations banning homegrown cannabis. CTV's Michelle Bernaro has the story.
And now it's like a giant weight has just been lifted off of everybody's back. They're all starting to hear about it now. The word is spreading.
A smoke signal from the courts, the topic of conversation at places like Vancouver's Cannabis Culture Cafe.
It's huge. It's massive. It's life-altering. You had 40,000 people all stressed out, depressed, suffering, wondering what are they going to do when this comes around April 1st.
A federal court judge is allowing patients to continue growing their own medical marijuana. Health Canada wants that job in the hands of licensed commercial producers. Patients and their lawyers argue that would mean skyrocketing prices and possibly a black market for the drugs they need.
This means that for me, I'm not going to be back onto pharmaceuticals that I didn't want to take, or have to choose between being a father of a 14-year-old daughter and having to feel like I'm a criminal for continuing to cultivate my plants.
Health Canada argues that risks like grow-up fires and mold outweigh the patient's rights to grow their own marijuana. They're also worried about crimes like break-ins and home invasions.
After the ruling, Health Canada issued a statement saying it will review the decision. They note while the courts have said there must be reasonable access to marijuana for medical purposes, their goal is to treat dried marijuana as much as possible like other narcotic drugs used for medical purposes.
Medical marijuana is used to treat conditions such as cancer, arthritis, and MS. Even though patients know the decision could be temporary, they're happy to be in control of their own medicine, at least until the issue goes back before the courts sometime in the next year.
Health-wise, I'll be able to continue treating my disease the way I want and with what's working.
Michelle Bernaro, CTV News, Vancouver.
Craig Jones is the executive director of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, or Normal Canada, and he's in Ottawa and joins us. Thanks a lot for your time today, Craig.
Happy to be with you.
So what are your thoughts on the court ruling?
It's good. You know, it's a demonstration that the courts are not going to be bullied and pushed around by the Harper government. The Harper government has demonstrated negligence with regard to the rights of medicinal cannabis users, and the courts are saying, oh, wait a minute, you can't simply hang medicinal users out to dry while you get the market mechanism up and running.
How do you expect the federal government will respond?
I expect they'll appeal, but that's a couple of years. That could be a year or more down the road. So, in the meantime, cannabis users will have access to their medications as they need them, and the market will continue to develop as well. You know, in the fullness of time, we may reach a place where everybody is happy, where the government feels like it has its regulations in place, and users feel like the price has come down and there's enough varieties, and they can tailor their strains to the kinds of symptoms they're trying to treat. And we may have a happy ending to this, but the way it's currently, the way the government has proceeded to this point is to say, well, we don't want people to grow their own cannabis for medicinal purposes. We want it to be controlled by private industry, and, you know, not to anybody's surprise, these entrepreneurs are friends of the government or friends of people in politics, and that's fine, except that cannabis is a beautiful plant that people actually really enjoy growing, and they can craft plants to specific levels of THC and CBD, which are the active ingredients, and they can actually create a strain that is appropriate to the particular symptoms that they are trying to treat. And the market is a long way from doing that at this point. So I think this is a good development, and in the fullness of time, we'll see what happens with it.
Do you not think that the government has some right to monitor or regulate what is grown?
In principle, you know, I would have preferred that the government took over the cultivation, production, and distribution of cannabis back in the 1970s when Ledane opened the door to that option. But now the government is playing catch up, and rather than sort of get ahead of the issue and say this is what users need, the government has taken this attitude that they still believe that cannabis is an illegal narcotic, demon weed, and all of that, gateway, etc. And they've taken an obstructionist and ideological approach to this, and we would prefer to see a more pragmatic and evidence-based and public health approach. But until we change governments and we bring in a government that has a more public health orientation to it, we're going to have to contest it in the courts.
All right, Craig Jones, the executive director of Normal Canada, speaking to us from Ottawa today. Thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Anytime.